I was standing in my childhood kitchen on my 20th birthday when my mom told me I needed to cancel my dinner because my 23-year-old brother Dylan was upset about not being included enough in the family lately. I had worked 2 jobs for 6 months to save for this dinner at a nice restaurant. My first real celebration after struggling through community college. My mom said Dylan felt overshadowed and threatened by my achievements. In that moment, I realized I had been the family's emotional punching bag my entire life. I made a decision that would change everything. I walked out that night with $300 cash in my wallet, a duffel bag stuffed with clothes, and my beaten-up pickup truck that had seen better days. I did not say goodbye. I did not leave a note. I just left. I drove 40 miles to a town where I knew absolutely nobody. No friends, no connections, nothing. I figured that was exactly what I needed. A clean slate. I found a cheap motel and paid for 3 nights, which ate up $120 right there. I had $180 left to my name. The first morning, I woke up and tried to buy breakfast with my debit card. Declined. I tried again. Declined. I called the bank from the motel phone. Turns out my mom had canceled the card. It was a joint account she had insisted on opening when I turned 18, saying it was for emergencies. She had every right to close it. Just like that, my $180 in cash was all I had in the world. Day 2. My truck started making a horrible grinding noise. By day 4, the transmission gave out completely in a grocery store parking lot. The truck just died. A mechanic quoted me $2,000 to fix it. I had $160 left after food. The truck was not going anywhere, so I slept in it, right there in that parking lot behind the grocery store. For 5 nights I used my duffel bag as a pillow and tried to ignore the cold that seeped through the broken windows. I washed up in the public bathroom at a gas station 2 blocks away. On the 6th morning, a security guard knocked on my window at 6 in the morning. His name tag said Frank. He was maybe 60 years old with gray hair and kind eyes that had seen some things. He told me I could not stay there, that he should call the police. I was honest with him, told him I had nowhere else to go, that I was trying to find work, that I just needed a little time. Frank looked at me for a long moment. Then he said I could use the store bathroom each morning before opening to clean up properly, but I had to be gone before the manager arrived at 8. He said he had been in a tough spot once, too. That act of kindness kept me from falling apart completely. I found day labor work through a lot near the highway. Construction cleanup mostly, hauling debris, sweeping, whatever they needed. It was back-breaking work in the sun for 10 hours straight. I made $70 a day when I could get picked. Some days nobody picked me. I ate 1 meal a day from the dollar menu. I was always hungry. After 2 weeks of sleeping in my dead truck, Frank told me about a condemned apartment building on the east side, where some of the day laborers crashed illegally. He said the owner had abandoned it years ago and nobody bothered the people staying there. I moved in that night. The studio apartment I claimed had black mold creeping up the walls, rats that scurried across the floor at night, and no heat, despite it being October. The windows were broken. The toilet barely worked. But it had a roof and a door that locked, which was more than I had before. I used the public library to search for better jobs online, but every application asked for a permanent address. I could not put down a condemned building. I had no references except Frank, and he was just a night security guard who barely knew me. My phone got shut off after 3 weeks because it was on my family's plan. I had no way to get calls back from jobs, even if they wanted to interview me. I was completely isolated. No contact with anyone I had known before. No friends because I had been too busy working to make any real ones in my hometown. I spent my 21st birthday alone in that moldy apartment, eating a gas station sandwich and wondering if I had made the biggest mistake of my life. Then, after 7 weeks of this existence, I finally landed a steady warehouse job. It was 3rd shift, 11 at night to 7 in the morning, moving boxes and loading trucks. It paid $12 an hour. Not much, but steady. I could start saving. I could start building something. I worked my first week and got my check. $384 after taxes. I felt rich. I bought real food. I bought a prepaid phone. I bought a space heater for the apartment. For the first time since I left, I felt like maybe I could actually do this. Then the letter came. It had been forwarded from my old address, finally catching up to me. It was from my mother. She had reported my truck as stolen. The truck was technically in her name as co-signer because I had been 19 when I bought it and needed someone to guarantee the loan. 2 police officers showed up at the condemned building 3 days later. Someone had given them an anonymous tip about people living there illegally. When they ran my information, the stolen vehicle report came up. They confiscated the truck as stolen property. They cited me for trespassing in the condemned building. They said I was lucky they were not arresting me. I lost my only valuable possession, and my illegal shelter in the same day. I was back to nothing. Worse than nothing, actually, because now I had a citation and a court date. Everything I thought I was building just collapsed. My mom had reached across 40 miles and crushed me without even being there. I was completely broke again. No vehicle, no phone because I could not afford to refill the minutes, living in a building that was now known to the police. I knew they would be back. I could not stay there. I found a night shift job at a 24-hour diner washing dishes. The owner was a guy named Gary, maybe 50 years old, with tattoos up both arms and a gravelly smoker's voice. He paid under the table, $8 an hour, cash at the end of each shift. It was less than the warehouse, but I was desperate. I took it. I kept the warehouse job too. I worked the warehouse from 11 at night until 7 in the morning, then went straight to the diner and worked 8 until 4 in the afternoon washing dishes. I got back to the condemned apartment around 5, slept until 10, and started all over again. 4 hours of sleep if I was lucky. Most nights it was 3. I did this for 3 weeks straight, no days off. 14-hour days of physical labor on almost no sleep and 1 meal a day because I was saving every single dollar I could. My body started shutting down. I lost 20 pounds. I could see my ribs. My hands shook constantly from exhaustion. On the 22nd day, I collapsed during my warehouse shift. Just fell over between 2 pallets of boxes. They called an ambulance, but I refused to go because I could not afford it. The supervisor sent me home, said I was unreliable, fired me on the spot. Just like that, half my income was gone. I was down to the diner job, and nothing else. I wanted to scream. I wanted to give up. I wanted to call my mom and beg to come home. But I knew what home meant. It meant Dylan getting whatever he wanted while I got nothing. It meant being told I was selfish for wanting my own birthday dinner. It meant being erased. So I did not call. I kept going. Gary noticed something was wrong. I guess it was hard to miss since I looked like a walking corpse. After the dinner rush one night, he sat me down in the back office and asked me straight out what was going on. I was too tired to lie. I told him everything. The whole story from my birthday to that moment. Gary listened without interrupting. When I finished, he was quiet for a minute. Then he said he was a recovering addict, had been clean for 8 years. He told me he understood what it meant to start over from less than zero. He said he saw himself in me, someone trying to claw their way out of a hole that kept getting deeper. He offered me more hours at the diner and said I could sleep in the storage room and back. There was a cot back there that delivery guys sometimes used. It was not much, but it was warm and dry and safe. I almost cried right there. I moved into that storage room that night. It smelled like grease and dish soap, but it was heaven compared to the moldy apartment. Gary gave me extra shifts. I worked 50, 60 hours a week, saving every penny beyond what I needed for food. I ate staff meals at the diner, which saved me a fortune. 1 meal a day of whatever the cook made wrong, or customers sent back. Gary taught me things too. How to manage money properly. How to set goals and work toward them in steps, instead of just hoping things would get better. He got clean because he made a plan and stuck to it, one day at a time. He said I could do the same thing with my life. After 2 months, I had saved $700. It felt like $1 million. I bought some decent clothes from Goodwill. I used the library computers to study for my GED test, since I had dropped out of community college when I left. I passed the test on my first try. I had my high school equivalency. I started taking free online business courses through community programs. marketing, basic accounting, that kind of thing. I spent every free moment learning, improving, preparing for something better. Gary encouraged all of it. He said education was the one thing nobody could take away from me. After 4 months total, I had $1,500 saved. I could afford a cheap, prepaid phone again. I opened a new bank account in my name only at a different bank than my mom used. I felt like a real person again. Like I existed. One night, curiosity got the better of me. I looked up my family on social media. My mom's profile was private, but Dylan's was public. He had moved back into my childhood home. I could see it in his photos. He was posting pictures from my old bedroom, except it was completely redecorated now. New paint, new furniture, gaming setup, everything. The captions were things like "good to be home" and "family first." There was a post from 3 weeks earlier that made my blood boil. Dylan had written a long caption about how he was the successful son who stayed loyal to the family, who did not abandon them when things got tough, who understood what really mattered. The comments were full of his friends congratulating him. My mom had commented with heart emojis. I felt rage building in my chest. I had left because they made my life unbearable. They had pushed me out, and then claimed I abandoned them. Dylan had taken everything I left behind, and was playing the victim. I wanted to drive back there and tell everyone the truth, but what good would it do? They would just say I was bitter and jealous. So I channeled that rage into working harder. I picked up a weekend shift at the diner. I finished 2 more online courses. I was going to succeed so completely that none of them could ever deny it. Then, I got a real opportunity. A small marketing firm was hiring an assistant. Entry level, but it was a real office job with benefits and a future. I applied. They called me for an interview. I bought a tie from Goodwill and showed up 30 minutes early. The interview went great. The manager liked me. She asked about my work history, and I was honest about the gap year. Said I had been working to save money and get life experience. She nodded like she understood. Then she asked for references. I gave her Gary's name and number. He had told me to use him as a reference anytime I needed. She said she would call him right then and there, which some managers do to make sure the reference is real. She dialed. It rang. No answer. She left a message and said she would call me back in a few days. I left feeling good. I went back to the diner for my shift. Gary was not there. The cook said he had not shown up that morning and had not called. That was not like him. Gary was reliable, always there. I found out the next day what happened. Gary had relapsed. Hard. Someone had offered him pills at the grocery store, and after 8 years clean, he took them. He spiraled badly in the span of 12 hours. By the time I heard about it, he was gone. Just disappeared. Nobody knew where he went. The diner owner, Gary's brother, showed up 2 days later. He said he was closing the place, could not run it without Gary, and could not keep paying staff he could not trust. We all got let go immediately. The storage room was no longer available. I had 3 days to get out. The marketing firm never called back. I tried calling them, but they said they had decided to go with another candidate. I knew it was because Gary's reference fell through. The manager had probably tried calling again and realized something was wrong. In one day, I lost my mentor, my job, my housing, and my chance at a better future. I was homeless again with $1,500 to my name and nowhere to go. Everything I had built through Gary's help just crumbled like it was made of sand. I could have given up right then. Part of me wanted to. But I remembered what Gary taught me before he relapsed. One day at a time. One step at a time. Keep moving forward, even when you cannot see where you are going. I found Gary 3 days after he disappeared. He was at a homeless shelter on the north side, looking destroyed. His eyes were hollow. His hands shook. He barely recognized me at first. I did not lecture him or tell him he let me down. I just sat with him. I brought him food from the money I should have been saving. I visited him every single day. A volunteer at the shelter noticed me coming in so regularly. Her name was Caroline. She was a social worker, maybe 30 years old, with red hair and the kind of smile that actually reached her eyes. She asked me why I kept coming to see Gary. I told her he had saved my life when I had nothing, and now he needed someone to do the same for him. Caroline said that kind of loyalty was rare. She asked about my situation. I told her I was currently between housing. She made some calls. Within a week, she found me a room rental with a retired teacher named Margaret who lived alone in a small house and wanted some extra income and company. The rent was $400 a month, including utilities. The room was small but clean. There was a real bed with clean sheets, a desk, a window with actual curtains. Margaret was 72 years old, with silver hair and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. She treated me like a grandson from day one, cooked extra food and offered it to me, asked about my day, cared. I got hired at a call center within 2 weeks, customer service for an insurance company. It paid $16 an hour, with full benefits after 90 days. I was back on my feet. I started night classes at community college again, using financial aid. Business major. I was 22 years old and finally felt like my life was actually moving in a real direction. I kept visiting Gary. It took him 4 months to get clean again, but he did it. He went through the shelters program, got into sober living, found a new job at an auto parts store. He told me I had saved him by not abandoning him. I told him we saved each other. At the call center, I got promoted twice in 18 months. First to senior representative, then to team lead. I was good at the work. I understood how to talk to people, how to solve their problems, how to make them feel heard. The pay went up to $22 an hour. I started a side business helping small companies with their social media marketing. Just a few hours a week at first, working from Margaret's house after my classes and my job. I charged small fees, built portfolios, learned as I went. Word spread. I got more clients. The side business grew to where I was making an extra $1,000 a month. I was 23 years old and had saved $12,000. I bought a used car. Nothing fancy, just a reliable sedan that got me where I needed to go. I had not contacted my family in 3 years. They had never tried to find me. As far as I knew, they had no idea if I was alive or dead. That hurt sometimes late at night, but mostly, I had made peace with it. I met Jenna at a community volunteer event. We were both helping serve food at a homeless shelter, actually the same one where Gary had stayed. She was a nurse at the regional hospital, working the emergency room. 24 years old, dark brown hair, bright eyes, and a laugh that made everyone around her smile. We started talking while ladling soup. She told me she volunteered twice a month because she believed in giving back. I told her I volunteered because I knew what it felt like to need help. She did not pry, did not ask invasive questions. She just listened. We exchanged numbers at the end of the night. Our first date was coffee at a cheap diner. We talked for 4 hours. I learned she came from a healthy family, parents still married, 2 younger sisters, Sunday dinners together, the whole thing. She did not understand dysfunction. She had never experienced it. That was refreshing. She made me believe that kind of life was actually possible. We dated for 8 months. She met Margaret, who adored her immediately. She met Gary, who told her she was too good for me, but in a joking way that made everyone laugh. I met her parents, who were kind and welcoming, and treated me like I mattered. It was everything my own family had never been. I fell in love with her. Really, deeply in love in a way I did not know was possible. She made me want to be better. She made me believe I deserved good things. Margaret encouraged me constantly, told me to never let Jenna go, said she was the kind of woman you build a life with. I saved up for an engagement ring. Nothing expensive, but something real and meaningful. I planned to propose at the park where we first had a picnic together. I had the whole thing worked out in my head. It was going to be perfect. The night before I planned to propose, Jenna came over to Margaret's house looking nervous. We sat on the porch. She took my hand. She told me she was pregnant. Unplanned, unexpected, but she was happy about it. Scared, but happy. She said she wanted to keep the baby and she hoped I felt the same way. I was terrified. I was 24 years old with a side business that was not stable yet, living in a rented room in someone else's house. still taking night classes. I had no business being a father. But then I looked at Jenna, really looked at her, and I felt this overwhelming sense of joy. This was my chance to build the family I never had, to be the father I never had, to give my child everything I was denied. I proposed right there on Margaret's porch. No park, no planned speech, just me pulling the ring out of my pocket and asking her to marry me. She said yes through tears. We sat there holding each other, terrified and excited and completely in love. 2 days later, I was checking the social media account I barely used when I saw a message request from Dylan. I had not heard from him in 3 years. My stomach dropped just seeing his name. The message said, "Hey bro, heard you were doing okay. Mom's sick. Cancer. She wants to see you before treatment starts. Please come home." I stared at that message for an hour. Jenna found me sitting there, asked what was wrong. I showed her. She said my mom deserved a chance to make peace, that I would regret not seeing her if she was really dying, that family was family. I did not want to go. Every instinct told me it was a trap, but the guilt was overwhelming. What if she really did have cancer? What if she died and I never gave her a chance to apologize? I made the worst decision I could have made. I decided to go home. I agonized over that decision for 3 days. Jenna and I talked about it for hours. She kept saying that forgiveness was important, that holding grudges only hurt me in the end, that my mom deserved a chance to make things right before she died. I knew Jenna meant well. She came from a family where people actually apologized and meant it. She did not understand that my family did not work that way, but I let her convince me. I told myself that maybe my mom really was dying. Maybe facing death had changed her. Maybe she finally understood what she did to me. I drove to my hometown alone, telling Jenna I needed to do this by myself. The 40-minute drive felt like hours. My hands were sweating on the steering wheel. I pulled up to my childhood home. It looked exactly the same. Same faded blue paint, same overgrown lawn, same rusty mailbox. I sat in my car for 10 minutes before I could make myself get out. I walked to the front door, knocked. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I might pass out. My mom answered. She looked perfectly healthy. Not a single sign of cancer. No weight loss, no pale skin, no weakness. She looked the same as she had 3 years ago, maybe a little older but nothing dramatic. She stared at me for a second, like she was seeing a ghost. Then she smiled and said my name. I was confused. I asked her about her cancer, about the treatment she was supposedly starting. She looked completely bewildered. Cancer? What cancer? Troy, what are you talking about? That was when Dylan appeared from the living room. He was smirking, actually smirking. He walked right up and stood next to our mom and said, "Surprise, big brother. Good to see you." The truth hit me like a truck. There was no cancer. Dylan had lied to get me back home. I looked at my mom, waiting for her to be furious at Dylan for lying, for using her as bait. But she just looked annoyed. She turned to Dylan and said, "Dylan, you should not have lied about something like that." But her tone was not angry. It was the same tone you would use to scold a kid for eating cookies before dinner. Mild disapproval, nothing serious. Then she turned back to me and said, "But since you are here, you need to help your brother." I could not believe what I was hearing. I had been lied to, manipulated into driving here, and now I was being told I needed to help Dylan. Help him with what? Dylan explained with this casual tone like it was no big deal. He had racked up $30,000 in credit card debt. Gambling, bad investments in some cryptocurrency scheme, expensive purchases he could not afford. He was drowning. The credit card companies were threatening legal action. Our parents had taken out a second mortgage on the house to cover $15,000 of it, but Dylan still needed another $15,000. They wanted me to give Dylan $15,000. Just hand it over, to fix the mess he had made. I laughed. I actually laughed out loud because the absurdity was too much. I told them no. I told them I was starting a family, that I had a baby on the way, that I needed every dollar I had saved. I told them I had built my savings from nothing while sleeping in my truck and washing dishes, and I was not just going to hand it over to fix Dylan's mistakes. My mom's face went cold. She said, "We raised you. We fed you. We put a roof over your head for 18 years, you owe us. I pointed out that they had emotionally kicked me out on my 20th birthday, that Mom had reported my truck stolen out of spite, that they had never once tried to find me or check if I was alive, that I owed them nothing. Dylan exploded. He started yelling that I had abandoned the family, that I was selfish, that I always thought I was better than everyone else. He said I acted like I was so special just because I worked hard, like that made me superior. He called me self-righteous and arrogant. Our mom did not stop him. She just stood there nodding along. I left. I walked out of that house and got in my car and drove away while Dylan shouted after me from the porch. My hands were shaking so badly I had to pull over twice on the drive back. When I got to Margaret's house, Jenna was there waiting. I told her everything. She was horrified. She apologized for pushing me to go. She said she had no idea people could be that manipulative with their own family. We agreed right then that we would cut contact permanently. No more chances. No more hoping they would change. They had shown me exactly who they were, and I finally believed them. 3 weeks later, I got served legal papers at my job. A process server walked right into the call center during my shift and handed me an envelope. Everyone stared. I opened it in my car during lunch break and felt my entire world tilt. My parents were suing me. They were actually suing me for financial support under some obscure state filial responsibility law. The lawsuit claimed I had abandoned them in their time of need, that they had sacrificed for me my entire childhood, and that I was now legally obligated to support them. They were demanding $25,000. I had not done anything wrong. I had not stolen from them. I had not hurt them. I had just refused to give Dylan money he did not deserve, and now I was being sued. Dylan was listed as a witness. The filing included a statement from him claiming that my departure 3 years ago had psychologically damaged him, that I had abandoned my responsibilities to the family, and that my refusal to help now was causing severe emotional and financial distress. I sat in my car reading that paperwork and felt like I was drowning. I had $8,000 saved for the baby. Now I had to hire a lawyer, which was going to cost thousands of dollars I did not have. The case could take months. It would drain everything I had worked for. I called a lawyer that afternoon. His name was Mr. Patterson. He charged $200 an hour. He said the filial responsibility law they were citing was rarely enforced, and even more rarely successful, but defending against it would still require going to court, filing responses, gathering evidence. He estimated it would cost between $5,000 and $10,000 total to defend myself. I wanted to scream. I wanted to break something. Instead, I went home and told Jenna. She held me while I cried for the first time since I was a kid. We were supposed to be planning a wedding and preparing for a baby. Instead, I was preparing to fight my own family in court. Jenna and I got married quickly at the courthouse. Just us, Margaret, and Gary as witnesses. It was not the wedding either of us had imagined, but we needed the legal protection of being married in case the lawsuit got worse. We took our vows in front of a bored clerk and went out for pancakes afterward. Margaret cried happy tears. Gary gave me a hug and told me I was going to be okay. Jenna was 5 months pregnant now. Her belly was starting to show. We had moved into a small apartment together, finally leaving Margaret's house, though she had told us we could stay as long as we needed. The apartment was tiny and the walls were thin, but it was ours. I hired Mr. Patterson and gave him $8,000 as a retainer. He said it should cover most of the case. I had $4,000 left in savings. For the baby, for emergencies, for life, $4,000 after years of building up $12,000. The lawsuit had already cost me 2/3 of everything I had saved. The case dragged on for 4 months. Every week there was some new filing, some new request for documents, some new hearing. I had to take time off work to appear in court. My boss was understanding at first, but after the third absence, I could tell it was becoming a problem. My side business suffered because I could not focus. I lost 2 major clients because I missed deadlines. During one of the court hearings, Dylan had to testify. He sat in the witness stand wearing a suit our mom had probably bought him and lied through his teeth. He said I had stolen money from the family before leaving. Said I had always been resentful and angry, that I had psychological issues, that I was unstable. He painted me as this villain who abandoned my poor parents. Mr. Patterson was good, though. He had bank records proving I had never stolen anything. He had testimony from Gary about finding me homeless. He had my employment records showing I had worked constantly since leaving. He systematically destroyed every lie Dylan told. The judge was not impressed with Dylan or my parents. During one exchange, the judge actually asked my mom, "So you reported his vehicle stolen as retaliation for him leaving, and now you want him to pay you $25,000? My mom stumbled over her answer. The judge looked disgusted. After 4 months, the judge dismissed most of the case, but he ordered that we had to attend family mediation before he would throw it out completely. One session, court mandated, with a professional mediator. If we did not go, the case would continue. It was a strategic move by the judge to make us try to work it out without clogging up his courtroom. The mediation was held in a bland office with gray walls and uncomfortable chairs. The mediator was a woman in her 50s who looked tired before we even started. My parents sat on one side with Dylan. Jenna and I sat on the other with Mr. Patterson. Dylan broke down during the mediation. Actually started crying. He said he was jealous of me, that he had always been jealous, that our parents had always given him everything he asked for, and because of that he never learned to work for anything. He said watching me succeed on my own made him feel worthless. He admitted he lied about the cancer to get me home because he was desperate and did not know what else to do. My mom finally saw the truth. She sat there looking at Dylan like she was seeing him clearly for the first time in his life. She realized she had created this. She had enabled him. She had destroyed one son by neglecting him and destroyed the other by coddling him. She started crying too. My dad, who had barely said a word during any of this, apologized to me. He said he was weak. He said he should have stood up for me years ago, and he was sorry. It was not enough, but it was something. The case was dropped. The judge signed the dismissal. It was over legally, but I had spent $14,000 on lawyer fees. $14,000 that should have gone toward my daughter, my life, my future. Jenna gave birth to our daughter 3 weeks later. We named her Emma. She was 7 pounds, 2 ounces of perfect. I held her in the hospital and cried. Not from sadness, but from this overwhelming feeling that despite everything, despite all the pain and the fighting and the loss, I had won. I had my family, my real family. Over the next 2 years, everything changed. My side business exploded. I quit the call center and ran my marketing agency full-time. I worked insane hours, but I loved it. I was good at it. Clients recommended me to other clients. I had to hire 2 employees just to keep up with demand. By the time I turned 27, I was making 6 figures. We moved out of the tiny apartment and bought a small house through a first-time homebuyer program. 3 bedrooms, a little yard, a safe neighborhood with good schools. Jenna worked part-time at a clinic, mostly to keep her skills sharp, but also because she loved nursing. Emma was 2 years old and absolutely thriving. She was smart and funny and loved books and had this giggle that could make anyone smile. Jenna and I were happy. Actually, genuinely happy. We had date nights. We had family dinners. We had the life I had dreamed about when I was sleeping in my truck. I thought I was finally free of my past. I thought Dylan and my parents were gone for good. We had not spoken since the mediation. I had moved on. I had won. Then, on a Saturday morning when Emma was 3 years old, the doorbell rang. I was in the kitchen making pancakes. Jenna was upstairs getting Emma dressed. I answered the door without thinking. It was Dylan. He looked terrible. Disheveled hair, wrinkled clothes, dark circles under his eyes. He looked like he had not slept in days. He asked if he could come in. Every instinct told me to slam the door in his face. But there was something so broken about him that I hesitated. That hesitation was my mistake. I let him in. He sat on our couch. He broke down crying immediately, said he was homeless, Said our parents had finally kicked him out after he racked up more debt. Said he had nowhere to go, nobody to help him. He begged me for help. Jenna came downstairs with Emma. Emma hid behind Jenna's legs, sensing the tension. Jenna looked at me, then at Dylan, then back at me. I could see her struggling with what to do. She was too kind. She said Dylan could stay in our guest room for 1 week maximum, while he found a job and got on his feet. 1 week, no longer. That night, I could not sleep. I kept thinking about how broken Dylan looked, about whether I was doing the right thing by helping him. Around 2 in the morning, I got up to get water. I walked past Emma's room. The door was cracked open. Dylan was standing in the doorway, just standing there, watching Emma sleep in her crib. He did not move. He just stared at her. I froze. I said his name. He turned to look at me with this strange expression I could not read. He said he could not sleep and he wanted to see what a real family looked like. He said it so calmly, like it was a normal thing to say. I told him to leave her room. He did, but slowly, reluctantly. I stood in that hallway after he went back to the guest room, and I felt fear crawl up my spine. Something was very wrong. This was not about needing help. This was about something darker. I woke Jenna up, told her what happened. She agreed immediately that Dylan needed to leave first thing in the morning. We did not sleep the rest of the night. We just sat in bed, listening, making sure he did not come back to Emma's room. At 6 in the morning, I went to the guest room. Dylan was sitting on the bed, fully dressed, staring at the wall. I told him he had to leave. He looked at me with cold eyes, all the brokenness from yesterday completely gone. He stood up slowly and walked to the front door. Before he left, he turned to me and said, "You have everything that should have been mine." Then he walked out to his car and sat there. Just sat in his car in my driveway, staring at my house. I called the police. They came and told him to leave. He did, but not before looking at me through the window with pure hatred in his eyes. That was just the beginning. I had no idea how bad it was about to get. Dylan started a campaign to destroy me. It was systematic, calculated, and relentless. Within 2 days of leaving my house, fake reviews appeared on every website where my business was listed. Google, Facebook, Yelp, industry-specific sites. 10, 20, 30 fake reviews. They claimed I stole money from clients. They said I did not deliver on projects. They claimed I was unprofessional and dishonest. I lost 3 major clients within the first week. They emailed saying they had seen the reviews and decided to go with another agency. I tried to explain that they were fake, that it was a personal attack, but it did not matter. Reputation is everything in business. Mine was being shredded. Then Dylan filed a false CPS report. He called Child Protective Services and claimed that Emma was being abused and neglected. He gave them details that sounded believable because he had been inside our house. He said she was underweight, that our home was filthy, that he had witnessed me hitting her. 2 CPS workers showed up at our door on a Tuesday afternoon. They said they had received a report and needed to investigate. I let them in. They looked through the entire house. They examined Emma, who was perfectly healthy, clean, and clearly well cared for. They found nothing because there was nothing to find. The lead worker apologized to us. She said the report was obviously false, and that it happens sometimes in custody disputes or family feuds. She told us who made the report. It was anonymous officially, but she said a family member had called. We knew it was Dylan. Jenna had a panic attack after they left. She was terrified. The idea that someone could call CPS and make her look like a bad mother destroyed her. She started having nightmares. She was afraid to leave the house, afraid someone was watching us, waiting to report more false things. I got a restraining order against Dylan. It was approved immediately, given everything that had happened. He was required to stay at least 500 feet away from our home, our daughter's daycare, and both of our workplaces. He violated it within 3 days. He showed up at Emma's daycare trying to sign her out, claiming he was her uncle and there was a family emergency. The daycare director recognized his name from the banned list I had given them and refused. She called me immediately. I called the police. They found Dylan sitting in his car 2 blocks away. They gave him a warning, just a warning, not an arrest. a warning for violating a restraining order and trying to kidnap my daughter. The officer explained that since he did not actually make it onto the property and left when told to, they could only warn him. I felt helpless. The system was failing to protect my family. Dylan started following Jenna. She would call me from the grocery store saying she saw his car in the parking lot. She would text me from the clinic saying she saw him drive past. Every time we called the police, he was gone by the time they arrived. He was always just far enough away that he technically was not violating the restraining order. My business was hemorrhaging money. The fake reviews were killing me. I hired a reputation management company to try to get them removed, which cost $2,000. It took weeks, and they only managed to remove half of them. New fake reviews kept appearing. Then Dylan somehow got hold of my client list. I still do not know how. Maybe he hacked my email. Maybe he guessed my passwords. But he started contacting my clients directly. He sent emails claiming that my business was under investigation for fraud, that I was going to be charged with crimes, that they should cancel their contracts immediately to avoid being implicated. It was all lies, completely fabricated. But some of my clients believed it. I lost 8 more clients in 2 weeks. That was over 40% of my revenue gone. My business that I had built from nothing was falling apart because my brother was on a mission to destroy it. The stress was destroying my marriage. Jenna and I fought constantly. Not about real things, just the tension finding an outlet. She wanted to move away, start over somewhere else. I refused. I said I had already run once and I was not doing it again. We yelled at each other while Emma played in the other room, probably hearing every word. I tried to salvage the business. I worked 20-hour days trying to keep the remaining clients happy, trying to find new clients, trying to undo the damage. But every time I made progress, something new would happen. More fake reviews. Another client would get a strange email. Another violation of the restraining order. Jenna had panic attacks daily now. She could not sleep. She could not eat. She lost 15 pounds in a month. I was watching my wife fall apart and I could not stop it. I felt like I was failing everyone. Then Dylan broke into our house. We had been at a park for Emma's 4th birthday party, just a small gathering with a few kids from her daycare and their parents. We were gone for 3 hours. When we came home, the front door was unlocked. I knew I had locked it. I always lock it. I told Jenna to stay in the car with Emma. I went inside. Nothing looked disturbed at first. Then I went to my home office. Dylan was sitting in my desk chair, illuminated by my computer screen. He had gone through all my files. My desk drawers were open. Papers were spread out everywhere. He had copied things. I could see USB drives on my desk. He looked up at me when I walked in. He was calm. Too calm. He said he had been going through my business documents and financial records. He said he had talked to a lawyer. He said that since our parents had helped me as a kid by raising me, and since he was family, he had a case for claiming part of my business assets. He actually said this. He said I had 4 years of success that should have been his if I had not abandoned the family. He said he was entitled to 50% of everything. The house, the business, the cars, the savings. He said he had already filed a lawsuit. Then he said the part that made my blood run cold. He said that based on his research, he could even make a case for custody of Emma. He said that since I had abandoned family before, I was an unfit parent, and that he could provide a better, more stable home environment for her. He said his lawyer thought he had a good chance. I lunged at him. I actually moved toward him without thinking. He stood up fast, grinning. He wanted me to hit him. He wanted me to assault him, so he could press charges, so he could use it in court to prove I was violent and unstable. I stopped myself. Barely, but I stopped. I told him to get out. He took his time gathering the USB drives and papers he had copied. He walked past me, brushing my shoulder deliberately. I heard him leave through the front door. I stood in my office shaking with rage and fear. Jenna came in with Emma. Emma asked why her room smelled different. That was when I realized Dylan had been in there too. He had been in my daughter's bedroom, going through her things, probably touching her toys, her books, her clothes. I felt sick. I called the police. They came and took a report. Breaking and entering. Violation of restraining order. They said they would go to his last known address. They found him there, and arrested him. Finally he was arrested. He spent one night in jail and was released on bail the next morning. 2 days later, I was served with lawsuit papers. Dylan was actually suing me. He was claiming that he was owed 50% of all my assets acquired since I left home because I had built everything using the foundation our parents had provided. It was the most insane thing I had ever read. No legitimate lawyer would take this case. But apparently, he had found one desperate enough to try. I knew then that Dylan had completely lost his mind. He was not going to stop. He was going to keep coming at me and my family until he destroyed everything. I could run like Jenna wanted, sell the house and move across the country. But he would just find me again. He would never stop. I had to end this. I had to fight back with everything I had. I did not panic this time. I had learned from the first lawsuit. I knew how to fight now. I called Mr. Patterson immediately. He remembered me from the filial responsibility case. When I told him what Dylan had done, he actually laughed. He said this new lawsuit was so frivolous, it bordered on comedic. He said no judge would take it seriously for even 5 minutes. But we were not just going to defend. We were going to attack. Mr. Patterson said we had grounds for multiple counterclaims: defamation for the fake reviews, harassment for the stalking, violation of the restraining order, breaking and entering, intentional infliction of emotional distress. We were going to bury Dylan in legal consequences. I gathered every piece of evidence I had. Screenshots of every fake review with timestamps showing they all appeared within days of each other. Emails from clients who had received Dylan's messages. Police reports from every restraining order violation. Security footage from Emma's daycare, showing Dylan trying to access the building. Phone records showing Jenna's calls to me about being followed. Photos of my office after the break-in. I documented everything. Every single thing Dylan had done over the past months. I built a timeline. I created a binder 3 inches thick with evidence organized by category. Mr. Patterson said it was the most thorough client documentation he had ever seen. Dylan's lawsuit was thrown out within 3 weeks. We went before a judge for a preliminary hearing. Dylan's lawyer tried to present his case. The judge cut him off after 5 minutes. The judge actually said, "Counselor, are you seriously trying to argue that your client is entitled to assets he never worked for, never contributed to, and has actively tried to sabotage?" The lawyer had no good answer. Case dismissed. The judge ordered Dylan to pay my legal fees. But we were not done. We filed our counterclaims. All of them. The case was strong. Too strong for Dylan to fight. Mr. Patterson told me that Dylan's lawyer would recommend he settle because going to trial would be financial suicide. He was right. 6 weeks later, Dylan's lawyer contacted us with a settlement offer. Dylan would admit to everything in writing, would agree to a permanent restraining order with no expiration, would pay $75,000 in damages, and would never contact me or my family again. If he violated any part of the agreement, he would face immediate criminal charges. I accepted, not because I needed the $75,000, though it would help rebuild what he had cost me. I accepted because I wanted that admission in writing. I wanted legal documentation of everything he did. I wanted it on record forever that he had tried to destroy me and failed. Dylan had no money to pay the judgment. The $75,000 would come through wage garnishment. His paychecks would be docked for years. Every time he got paid, he would be reminded of what he had done and what it cost him. But I did not stop there. I used all the evidence from Dylan's fake reviews to get them permanently removed from every platform. I contacted each of my former clients personally, with copies of the court settlement showing that Dylan had fabricated everything. I explained what had happened with full transparency. I did not make excuses. I just showed them the truth. 6 of the 8 clients came back. They said they respected my honesty and my integrity. They said what Dylan had done showed my character by how I handled it. I gained more respect by fighting back than I ever lost from the fake reviews. The story spread in my local business community. Not because I advertised it, but because people talk. Business owners heard about what happened. They heard about how I documented everything, how I fought back legally, how I won. Instead of damaging my reputation, The whole ordeal enhanced it. People saw me as resilient, trustworthy, someone who did not back down when attacked. My business recovered within 4 months. Then it thrived. I got 15 new clients from referrals, many of them specifically because they had heard my story. I had to hire 3 more employees just to handle the workload. By the end of that year, my revenue had doubled from before Dylan's attacks. Jenna and I went to marriage counseling. We worked through the trauma together. We learned how to communicate better under stress. We rebuilt trust. We fell in love all over again, deeper than before because we had survived something that could have destroyed us. Emma thrived completely unaware of most of what happened. She knew Uncle Dylan had been mean and could not come over anymore, but she did not know the details. We protected her from it. She grew up happy and secure with 2 parents who loved her and each other. Dylan disappeared from social media. I heard through my mom, who reached out months later with a genuine apology, that Dylan had moved to another state. He was working at a warehouse, living in a small apartment, going to court-mandated therapy as part of his settlement. My mom said he was finally getting help. She said she and my dad realized they had failed both of us in different ways. I accepted their apology, but maintained strict boundaries. They could see Emma twice a year under supervised visits. I would never forget what they did, but I could forgive enough to let them be grandparents from a distance. They understood. They did not push for more. I learned something through all of this. I learned that you cannot run from your problems because they will always find you. But you also cannot let toxic people control your life. The key is boundaries. Fierce, unbreakable boundaries. You fight for what you built. You protect your family. You document everything. You use the system correctly. And you never, ever back down. I also learned that success means nothing if it comes easy. The fact that I built everything from sleeping in my truck to owning a thriving business means more because I know exactly what it cost. Every client, every dollar, every achievement is mine in a way it never could be if it had been handed to me. Dylan wanted what I had, but he could never understand that what I had was not just the house or the business. It was the knowledge that I earned it, that I survived, that I won. I am 31 years old now. Emma is 6, starting 1st grade. Jenna and I just celebrated our 7th anniversary. My business has 22 employees and serves clients in 3 states. We live in a beautiful home in a neighborhood where kids ride bikes and neighbors know each other's names. I coach Emma's soccer team. I volunteer at the same homeless shelter where I met Jenna. Gary is 7 years clean now and works for my company in operations. Margaret is 80 years old and comes to Sunday dinner at our house every week. I stand in my backyard on Saturday mornings, watching Emma play, while Jenna brings me coffee. These moments are everything. This life is everything. I built this from $300 and a dream of being worth something. I won. Not by destroying Dylan, though I could have. I won by refusing to let him destroy me. So I slept in it, right there in that parking lot behind the grocery store. For 5 nights, I used my duffel bag as a pillow and tried to ignore the cold that seeped through the broken windows. I washed up in the public bathroom at a gas station, 2 blocks away. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to cut off a toxic family member to protect yourself or your family? How did you handle it? What would you have done in my situation? Leave a comment below. I read every single one. If this story resonated with you, if it helped you feel less alone in your own struggles, do me a favor. Hit that like button. It helps more people find this story. Subscribe to the channel, because I share more stories like this every week. Stories about real people, overcoming real obstacles. And share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who is struggling with family issues, someone who feels trapped, someone who needs to know that it is possible to start over and win. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here. I hope my experience helps you in some way. Remember, your past does not define you. Your struggles do not limit you. You are stronger than you think. You can build a life worth living no matter where you start. You can win. I believe in you because I know it is possible. I lived it. Take care of yourselves. Protect your peace. Fight for your family. And never, ever give up on building the life you deserve. Until next time.